Всем привет! Вы на канале Рагандar News.
Britain said that menacing Russia jammed the GPS signal on every fourth RAF flight. It even became interesting. And what is the British Royal Air Force doing near the Russian border, where the GPS signal can be jammed for them? They clearly didn't complain there that the wily Putin, they say, with his even more wily Alexei Rembovich, jammed the satellite navigation over London or Glasgow. We understand that we are talking about completely different parts of the planet, so someone out there has an itchy empire again. The very one on which the sun never set. The question is not whether Russia is jamming or not. The question is what British fighters are doing near our borders. Because we remember that the state of their armed forces has reached the point where they recently nearly knocked down their own Minister of Defense with their nuclear-powered loaf. During strategic exercises, it's still a big question whether something needs to be jammed on British equipment or whether it has long since broken down on its own. Besides, another interesting question. They were saying there that we were picking chips out of washing machines. And suddenly, look at the miracles that Russian equipment can perform. Even the British can't fly in peace. A small trick for the future. Has Britain ever tried buying washing machines itself and picking chips out of them? Maybe they'd start to get something out of them, and not just drop their missiles on their own ministers. But the attempt to stir up a scandal is creditable. In the first 4 months of 2002-4, Russia jammed the GPS signal on every fourth RAF flight. 63 British military aircraft between January 1st and April 30th. They completed 1,467 flights over Eastern Europe and the Middle East. During this time, United Kingdom military aircraft made 504 transport and reconnaissance flights over Eastern Europe. At the same time, 142 of them encountered GPS jamming. And in 60 cases such attempts were made multiple times. This is yet another example of Russia's recklessness and further proof that it is a hostile state out of control, the Telegraph writes. It's funny. That is, London shouted loudest than anyone that Russia needed to be decolonized, that is, dismantled into parts and deprived of sovereignty. They demanded more than anyone else about strategic defeat, about the confiscation of our assets. And suddenly, what a surprise, who would have thought, Russia is doing something hostile there. And then you look, the West is behaving entirely friendly. They imposed sanctions the likes of which have never been seen in the history of mankind. They almost upset the entire world economy with their crazy decisions. And day after day they discuss the same thing. How else could we harm Russia? But at the same time, he is sincerely indignant that Russia did something hostile there. They are talking about 1 million shells, but Russia jammed the GPS signal. Exactly the same thing. An uncontrolled country, as they write. Is it possible to find out who controls America? We have already realized that Russia is bad, this and that. Uncontrollable. And who controls good America when the whole world was shouting that there was no need to get involved in Iraq? What was with the control, when now the whole world is shouting to stop the cruelty in the Middle East, and the United States is persistently inflating it all? How's the control? Everything is fine. And only bad Russia, you see, has gotten out of control. You had to be so impudent to write this directly. Like, the British don't control someone, how bad that is. Yes, who are they to dare to control someone? Who gave you this right? But in reality, of course, the whole point is completely different. There is a real reason that Britain does not want to name. Now we'll tell you everything, but for now. With the current situation in the world, it is difficult to remain calm and not get depressed. Personally, I use Synthesizit for this. Synthesite is a synthesized young iron that has a comprehensive effect on improving all parameters of the body. And the product Synthesite Anti-Stress Neuroactive was created to put the nervous system in order, improve mood, and improve sleep. There is currently a promotion on Synthesite on the manufacturer's website. You can purchase it at a big discount. I learned about Synthesite a year ago and was surprised that such a unique product was developed in Russia. Synthesite has no analogs in the world in terms of its beneficial properties for the body. The effectiveness and safety of Synthesite has been confirmed by international and Russian scientific research. I am satisfied with the action of Synthesite and constantly buy it for myself and my relatives. I recommend it to you too. You can learn more about Synthesite and get acquainted with the results of its research on the manufacturer's official website. I leave the link in the description. Use it.
Сенсационные вещи пишут наши друзья-поляки. Россия, мол, под санкциями чувствует себя лучше, чем Европа и даже США, которые эти санкции вводили. Если дословно, то
Moscow continues to amaze. Its economy is developing at such a high rate that those who imposed sanctions can envy. In 2023, the International Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development predicted a decline in the Russian economy by 2.5%. However, on the contrary, it began to grow at a rapid pace of 3.6%. This is happening against the background of a strong blow from a huge number of sanctions. The attack develops much faster than the attacker. Incredible. In 2024, the Russian economy is growing even faster, by 5.4% in the first quarter. At the same time, the German economy is shrinking by 0.9%. And the American one grew by only 1.3%, writes Missile Polska. The thing is that it has already become completely clear. America banned Europe from having any trade ties with Russia simply because, according to America, you cannot and should not trade with those with whom you will soon really butt heads. Because you will simply turn off all your supplies as soon as you climb, and all the fights will end before they even begin. The problem is that Europe is not coping with this whole situation either way. If Europe completely breaks off trade with Russia, then its economy will simply collapse, and it will no longer be able to butt heads with anyone at all. And if Europe still continues to trade with us, I wonder how she will climb on us. Russia will simply stop their entire economy, which is still madly dependent on us. Naturally, this does not suit the United States terribly. They understand very well that they don't want to attack us with their own hands. And that's why they need Europe to attack us by proxy. And for this it is necessary to sever all relations with Russia. But they don't break, and Russia continues to trade, even bigger and better than it was. And Europe is weakening year by year. That's why the US is so hysterical. And Britain is saying all this out loud. It is inconvenient for the hegemon to stick his ears out once again in the old world. Therefore, it turns out that Germany fell by a percentage, the USA grew by a percentage, and Russia grew by 5.5%, which is what drives them crazy. But what worries the West most is the fact that it's becoming completely impossible to get close to Russia. Economically, it doesn't work at all. It doesn't work at all. We tried it by force. We realized that it was possible to get rid of it, and that it was better not to do so. And now Belarus is starting to openly play with our tactical Iskanders with special charges. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Belarus announced its readiness to use tactical systems with special charges and that this will happen in the event of a threat to the sovereignty of the Republic. This statement was made by the Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces, First Deputy Minister of Defense of the Republic Pavel Moraviko in a conversation with the ONT TV channel. One of the last arguments and theses that act as a deterrent is, this is the return of tactical systems with special charges to the territory of our country. We have learned how to use these weapons. We know how to apply it confidently. We are capable of doing this, Moraviko said. The head of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Belarus pointed to unfounded and incomprehensible activity near its borders. We are forced to move our unit there, prepare for cover, and sometimes move artillery in order to be able to respond in a timely manner, the general emphasized. The media in Belarus previously reported that checkpoints could appear in border areas where civilian vehicles would be checked. Let us recall that Moscow transferred the Iskander missile system to Minsk, which can carry special charges, and provided assistance in re-equipping Belarusian aircraft so that they could carry special ammunition. Belarusian rocket scientists and pilots underwent appropriate training in Russia. On June 16 last year, Putin announced that the first Russian special charges had been delivered to Belarus. The entire batch will arrive before the end of 2023. At the end of April, President of Belarus Alexander Lukashenko announced that Russia had stationed several dozen nuclear weapons in the country. The West found itself in a stalemate. The further it goes, the more it seems that all he can do is admit defeat. Humble yourself and begin to smoothly give up your place in the world. I wonder when they will finally understand this and realize that their main task today is China. Because while Biden was dealing with Russia, China had already become an unattainable goal for them.